We're here at MECUM Auto Auctions 2023. We're going to find out exactly what makes these cars worth so much money and how much they really go for. I'm Parker with Backyard Barn Finds, and let's get going. So the car behind me here to start out with is a 1970 TA Challenger, and what's really cool is that it's in all original unrestored condition. Now these are basically the same thing as your AA Arcuda. They made about 2,399 of these, and if this was an AA Arcuda, it would say 6-barrel on the top here instead of 6-pack. 6-barrel was the Plymouth version, but what's really cool about this car is it is in plum crazy purple. Now if this was the Cuda version, it would be called in violet, and that's designated by the FC7 right here on the fender tag. In 1970 and 71, all 340s were actually painted orange. Now they didn't make a TA Challenger in 1969, but if you had a 340 motor in 1969, it would be painted in turquoise. What's also cool about this car is that one of the first production cars to have two different size wheels. The actual wheels itself are the same size, they're 15 by 7. However, the tire is a different length or different size on the front and the back. So this is an E60, which would have a 7.5 wide tread pattern on it. And if we go to the back here, we can see that this one says G60, which would have an 8.5 inch wide tread pattern on the back of it here. Now, all AA Arcudas and TA Challengers also got the side exit exhaust. Because of that, their suspension is a little bit different, and they actually sit higher than the normal Challengers or the Cudas of the day. These were built for Trans Am racing. We can see that this one is automatic. I mean, the paint, you can see through the paint. It doesn't look like it's ever been repainted. Well, I'll show you in the front here, it came with fiberglass hood. They don't even have hood latches because it was to save weight. They're only held down by hood pins on the front of this car. So what exactly do these 1970 Challenger TAs bring? We are at a MECUM auction, so we'll use the other MECUM auction results to kind of give you those answers. The last one that sold that was unrestored in a very similar condition was actually orange. It brought about $50,000. Now I'm not sure how unrestored that car was. We can kind of use that as a benchmark. The last TA Challenger, just like this one that was plum crazy purple, it was restored perfectly. That car sold for about $110,000. What is this car worth? We'll find out exactly how much that is right now. So I want to talk to you guys about the two versions of Boss Mustangs. They both were available between 1969 and 1970, and this car behind me is a 1969 Boss 429. Now, these cars were originally homologated for NASCAR. They got the big Boss 9 motor down inside, and what's specific to the 69 version is the hood scoop is actually the same body color. If this was a 70 Boss 9, it would be black. Unfortunately, we're not able to open the hood because this car has been sold, but we can see that it does have the Z in the VIN number there. You're probably not going to see another one of those for a long time. Really, really cool Mustang. They have competition suspension on the front, so they got a front sway bar. They were originally 428 Cobra Jet cars from Ford. They were sent over to Carcraft, where they had the shock towers removed so they could fit the big 429 Boss motor down inside. Now, these were also the first production Mustangs to ever have a rear sway bar. Remember, they were to go around a NASCAR track, and so they were supposed to handle a little bit better. This little black sway bar right here is the first time that was seen on a Mustang on this Boss 429. I was also told that the 429 cars have a smaller chin spoiler because the front end is heavier. It's at a little bit lower to the ground than the Boss 302. This car has a drag pack option. On the drag pack option cars, they had an intercooler on this side. You can kind of see it in there, which would have also meant that the horns would have been relocated. One of the horns that was over here would be relocated to this side, and that was just to keep the oil temperature a little bit cooler when these cars were racing. That's what the drag pack option was for. A white one sold for $330,000 recently at Kissimmee. I saw a black jade one sell for about $350,000, and this is how much this one sold for right now. So we just looked at a Boss 429. This is a Boss 302. Now, like I said, the Boss 429 was for NASCAR. This was built specifically to compete in SCCA or Trans Am racing against that TA Challenger that we took a look at that was purple in the beginning. On the Boss 429 cars, they had the drag pack option. However, none of the Boss 302 cars had that option on it. We can see that the horns are on both sides, and there's no actual intercooler here for the engine itself. Now, this one does have the optional shaker scoop on here, which I think is pretty cool. But what's really cool is that in 1969, remember this is a 70, we can tell that by the front right here. It doesn't have the 4 headlights, it just has the 2 in the front grille. But in 69, they would have had chrome valve covers. And in 70, they're cast aluminum, just like this one here. But a regular Mustang 302 would have 6 studs for the valve cover itself, and a Boss 302 Mustang has 8 studs that hold on the valve cover. Now this car is in Calypso Coral, and what's really cool is that the first car that I ever bought and sold that was a classic car was a 1970 Calypso Coral Mustang. Not a Boss 302, but definitely something that I think is pretty cool. Very rare color. These graphics on the side here are reflective. I'm not sure if you can kind of see that on camera. But it does have the Corinthian white leather on the inside. What's really cool is all Boss 302 Mustangs did not have the scoop on the side. So this is a 70, it wouldn't have had the scoop anyway, but all 69 Boss 302 Mustangs had the same quarter panel. So what exactly is a Boss 302 1970 worth? Well, the last one that sold in MECUM auction went for about $77,000, but it wasn't really a color combination that was as rare as the Calypso Coral. Cars like this in this condition with these rare of paint jobs can fetch up to about $100,000 to $110,000, and we'll find out how much this one's worth right now. They have 2 cars here that I want to show you the difference between the two. It's not very often that you see a Superbird and a Daytona Charger next to each other. Now you could get a Hemi or a 440 in both of these cars, and this is one of the 135 that has the Hemi in it for the Superbird. And then remember, they only made 70 1969 Daytona Chargers with the Hemi in it. That is a 440 car behind us, but what's cool about the motor options in these cars is that you could get the 6-barrel on the 440 with the Superbird. However, you could never get the 6-pack with the Daytona Charger. The reason I wanted to start over here is because the nose cones to these cars are 2 different shapes. If we take a look down the side here, you can see that the nose cone for the Roadrunner is a little bit longer than the Daytona Charger, and it does not have that black piece right here in the front. I'll show you a few more changes also as well. We can see that the Superbird does have the black pieces here in the front, as well as the rubber in case you hit something here, and it also has running lights that are positioned down here. Now if we take a look at the Daytona Charger, it does not have the rubber bumpers piece that's in the front, and the running lights are right here as well. Now, they only made 503 Daytona Chargers in 1969, and they only made about 2,000 Superbirds in 1970, so they are very rare cars. But as we continue along here, we'll show you the differences. So the hood scoops right here on a Daytona Charger have holes down here. You can kind of shoot down in there and see the hole itself. Some people say that they were from tire clearance. That's what Dodge said when these cars came out. However, they're more of just for heat extraction when they're racing. Remember that this is the first stock car to go over 200 miles an hour. And if we take a look under the scallops for the Superbird, there are no holes. What's also cool about the difference between these two is the A-pillar right here on a Superbird is screwed in. You can see the 2 screws. But on a Charger Daytona, they're glued on. They are not screwed in. Now back to the nose cone for a second. You can see here in the light that there is a rib that runs down the front of this nose cone on the Superbird. However, on the Daytona Charger itself, it's completely flat. Now if we go to the back of these cars, remember that these started out as a Charger 500, and we learned in a few videos back that the Charger 500 had a flush window to just make it a little bit more aerodynamic. So all Daytona Chargers had the flush window back here with the plug in it. And they tried to do something similar with the Superbird. However, it didn't look as pretty, so they all got a vinyl top. It doesn't matter what color your Superbird is, it does have a vinyl top on it. The wings are made out of aluminum, and they're at a different angle for each car. So we can see that the angle for this car, I don't know what you would call that, more steep, I guess, than the angle for the actual Daytona. You can kind of see that now on the camera. But what's really cool that a lot of people don't know is that the Daytona Charger has the fuel cap on the side. We take a look at the Superbird over here. The fuel cap is behind the license plate. We have this 1970 LS6 Chevelle behind us. Well, this car originally started out as a green car. It has been painted in tuxedo black, and it also does say here that it was restored correct with a period correct CRV suffixed restamp restoration 454. Now, what does that actually mean? Well, that means that this block is not numbers matching to this car, so we're not sure if it is really an LS6 or not. It just says period correct, so it could be a 70 block, it might not be a 70 block, but what they've done is they've restamped on the side over here on the pad this correct number. You can't see it, but it will have the CRV stamped right here on the pad down here so that it would be correct. On the air cleaner here, we can see that it does have the 454 with 450 horsepower. And what's really cool about that is this is the highest horsepower rated car in 1970, more than the MECUM and also more than the Corvette, which is the first time that happened on a Chevrolet product. I believe the MECUM had about 425. I also think that the Corvette had 425. Maybe someone could correct me. But overall, it's done in tuxedo black. It's done very, very well. It does have the SS gauges in it. Those would be square if this was not a super sport car. The last car to sell in black with an original drivetrain went for about $160. So this car with the period correct motor, not the original drivetrain, will probably bring less than that. Like I said, it was originally green. It has been done over in black, and we'll find out exactly how much this car brings right now. So now we're going to take a look at a 1970 Chevelle LS6 convertible. Now this one's done in black cherry, and it's the only LS6 convertible that's done with these options on it. We can see that it does have the 450, 454 down in there. However, this car has a different suffix on the engine code. So that one had a CRV suffix on the stamp itself. This one has a CRR. You can probably can't really see it down there, but it does have it scraped off there. It does say CRR, which is also a big block 454, 450 horse motor. Now, if we go over here to the window sticker, it does tell us that this car, actually the investigating officer had unlawfully seized this car among others in the case, and we can see it does have the case here. It also says that the cowl has been replaced. Now, I'm not 100% sure if that means the cowl piece right here or the actual cowl hood itself, but the black car that we took a look at was a 4-speed. This one is an automatic. I personally don't mind an automatic car, but that might just be me. If you're into that, kind of just let us know below. But the overall value of this car, I'm not sure if this was the exact car that was at MECUM Indy 2023, but there was one just like it in this color combination, and it went on for $290,000. We'll find out exactly how much this car brings right now. So the cars we just took a look at were Chevelle LS6s, and those had 500 foot-pounds of torque, and the only car to have more than that in the same year would be a 1970 Buick GS. And the car behind me is 71, but these cars don't really get that much love, and they're extremely, extremely rare. It does have the 455 Stage 1 motor on the inside here, and it is painted in lime mist metallic with a pearl white interior. Just not a color combination that you see very often, but this is the biggest horsepower, the highest option, the best motor that you could get in a Buick GS in 1971. And what's specific to these motors is, of course, the chrome valve covers. They would have also had chrome bolts that hold down the valve covers. Now we can show you that it does have the Stage 1 badge here. The Stage 1 badge here on the side, something that I think is pretty cool. You don't really see very often. And this car is an automatic. I mean, it does also have the hood tack, something different for an automatic. And Buick was like the luxury version, and we can prove that by showing you that this car also has the air conditioning as well for the convertible, something that's pretty rare. Now, depending on where you do your research at, I don't even think Buick knows if they built 801 of these or 902, and that would have been just the GS Stage 1s. However, they only built 81 convertibles in the GS in 1971. So this car is a 1 of 81. Very, very, very rare. If we take a look on the inside, it has all the creature comforts. Those gauges on over there, you just don't see those very often. Really, really solid muscle car here at MECUM Auto Auctions. Let me know what you guys think. Is this a car that you would just take out on the Sunday and cruise around in. I mean, I'm falling in love with this car the more I take a look at it. The last Buick GS Convertible that I've been able to find that sold at MECUM sold for around $88,000, and here's how much this one sold for right now. The car behind me is pretty special to me, and it's a pretty special car overall. This is a 1968 Green Hornet replica. And what is a Green Hornet? Well, the Green Hornet was produced by Ford as a prototype vehicle to basically take the California Special nationwide. And it originally would have had the Lucas lights on the front right here, and it would have had also the scoop that would have said GTCS for California Special, and it would have also had the Shelby taillights in the back. Now, Ford was not using that vehicle. They sent that over to Shelby, where he did a little bit of experimentation with the Green Hornet, and that's how we get EXP on the side. So the EXP stands for Experimental 500. This would have had the Cobra Jet 428 on the inside, but it is an experimental block. Now remember, this is a replica car. That's why it does say CSS on the side. And it also has Carroll Shelby's signature on the headrest, and has the guy who made the cars on the back with legendary GT. You can't really see it back there. One of the differences would be that this car is not fuel injected. This car has a carburetor still on it. The real Green Hornet has a really cool trick fuel injection system, as well as the real Green Hornet had four-wheel disc brakes. Now this car does have four-wheel disc brakes on it, however it does not have the independent rear suspension. See, this one has a 9-inch rear end. The original Green Hornet would have actually had an independent rear suspension setup. Now Carroll Shelby had this car commissioned by a friend of his that lived here in Pennsylvania, and I actually sold that person several rare Mustangs a few years ago and found some parts, not for this car, but for the actual Shelbys that are registered around 2012 to 2016. So pretty cool car, pretty cool person that built this car. It was built for Carroll Shelby. They did actually make a second car. It was done in black. It was made to mimic his Stetson satin black hat. That one sold at Barrett-Jackson for $451,000. We'll show you exactly how much this car sold for right now. One of the coolest cars of all time is behind me. This is a 1967 Shelby GT500. This is an Eleanor clone, or a replica of one of the, I've heard different numbers, between 11 or 12 cars that were actually used in the movie. This one is a C code. 3 of the cars that were restored, one is an S code, 2 are C codes. Doesn't really take away from this car. This is a fantasy piece in Gone in 60 Seconds with Nicolas Cage. Not the original Gone in 60 Seconds, but the second film that was produced. It does have the Go Baby Go button there on the shifter that everyone does look for. It does have the NOS bottle here in the back of the trunk. A lot of controversy with these cars. The reason being is because the lady who started the first Gone in 60 Seconds movie claimed that she has the rights to the name of Eleanor. And basically when you build one of these cars, she would sue you and then you would lose your car. Now, when I was younger, I had the luxury of finding a bunch of Mustang fastbacks, and I actually would sell them to the only official dealer for Eleanor clones, and that would be Fusion Luxury Motorsports over in California. So a lot of the cars that I have found have been built into these kind of vehicles. Now, the prices on these cars really depend on the motor that's inside, whether it has like a Roush motor down inside or just a big block 427, or depending on who built the car. They are not really ever really the same. On some Eleanor clones, the hood scoops are kind of not functional, but open. But on these ones, they are not open. Also, on a real Shelby GT500, the exhaust would not be down here at the side. We can also see that it has an E here for Eleanor after the GT500. Really cool stuff. These cars have sold all over the board. I've seen them sell for $100,000. I've seen them sell for $500,000. Not actual movie cars, but just replicas in general. It really depends how they're built, and we'll show you how much this one sold for right now. A Camaro that we haven't talked about on the channel before is a 1969 L89. And what exactly is an L89 Camaro? Well, you can see it does have the big block 396 down under the hood here with the 375 horsepower. But what sets the L89 apart differently than just the regular L78 375 horsepower is these aluminum heads. You can see the winter casting right here on the side, and the thought process was that, you know, with the aluminum heads on the top here, that this engine would weigh about the same as a small block. And, you know, very, very potent stuff, very, very rare heads. They only made 311 1969 L89 Camaros, and this one's done, of course, in Hugger Orange. But something that was pointed out to me by a viewer on the channel that I was not aware of is that these stripes on the front here, the hockey stripe, was painted on the front fender, and on the door, it was actually a sticker or a decal, something that I didn't know that one of our viewers taught us here on the channel. Thank you for that information, but you can take a look inside. It's very, very well done. Just the way that you'd like to find these cars. All right, so this is a pretty cool car. I'm not too familiar with Cougars, but this is a 1968 Cougar. Of course, we know that. It does have the side marker light on the side here. I remember 68's first year for that. Not something I'm familiar with. This is a XR7-G. It's not a car that I've actually seen in person before, but we can see that it does have the 4-barrel 390 down under the hood here, and the XR7 would have been like the luxury version. We can see it has the air conditioning on the side. I was told that the XR7-G came with the hood pins. If someone wants to comment below and kind of educate me and maybe everyone else about that, it's just not a car that I run into very often. If we take a look on the inside of this car, we can see that it is a very luxurious car. It's got a sunroof in it. It has power windows in the center console there. Look at all the gauges and switches up top. That Cougar XR7-G logo on the dash plate over there, that's something that I've not seen in person before. Yeah, it is an S-Code, the original 390 car. It says it was from California with 23,000 miles, so it might be an original unrestored. It doesn't say that, but it definitely presents itself as one. I don't know, guys. This is, if I had to own a Cougar, it might be this one. This is also a 1969. It does say that it is in a special paint code called Carolina Blue. Now, there's no mention of this car actually being a Z28, and there's no mention of this car being an actual JL8 brake car. If we take a look underneath the rear end here, I don't know on camera, but you can see that the backside does have disc brakes. And if that was true, it would be one of 206 JL8 disc brake option cars. And we did speak about how to tell the difference on those cars in a previous video on the channel. To my knowledge, there's only one of two 1969 Z28s in Carolina Blue. That's the color that you're looking at right here. And what's cool is it also does have the cross ram intake. Now, this intake would have arrived from the dealer in the trunk and was installed by the owner or the dealer itself, not from the factory. And I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see this on camera, but this car on the VIN tag itself, or the cow tag, instead of having numbers, it just has dashes for the paint code, and it does not have an X code. So very difficult to tell if this was a real Z28 or not from the factory. But overall, what do you guys think? Carolina Blue 1969 Camaro Z28. One of the cars that I've absolutely just fallen in love here at the show with is this 1969 Dodge Charger, and it is a Restomod, and it has the Dodge Demon motor down inside here, so it's probably pushing somewhere around 800 horsepower. We can see the Devil logo on the front, and of course it does have the red on the covers here. But what's cool is it has a 69 front grille. We can take a look at the VIN number here. We see that it says XS, which means that it actually would have been a real RT car. And of course, the digit in the middle there, the L, stands for a 2-barrel 383 car, but it is not a 69. If we take a look after the L, it says 8, so they originally started with a 1968 Charger, put a 1969 front grille on it, but I think it was done absolutely correct. It's got the Demon wheels on it. Been to a lot of shows, have not seen a Charger done like this. It's got the Demon logo on the side here. All of the SRT interior in here, very, very plush, very beautiful. I mean, if I was to drive a classic Charger, they just don't make them look like this anymore, do they, guys? It's Willwood disc brakes. The only thing I'm not sure about is it does have the Demon logo that faces the wrong way back here. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but just something that I've kind of picked up on. It's got the new Challenger taillights in the rear end. I just love this car. Not sure exactly what this car would bring. It's very difficult to tell what Chargers bring in Restomod condition. They do have a whole bunch of them here at the show. We'll show you exactly what this car sells for right now. So this 69 Charger's Restomod's done in just a little bit different flavor. We can see that it has basically like a General Lee theme, but without all the General Lee components. And just to show you the different engine that it's in here, this has the Hellcat motor in it. Of course, you can see the SRT with the Hellcat logo, and the covers are actually orange, not red like they were in the Demon. But it does say XP, so we know that this was not an actual RT Charger, and then it does have 9 right there in the digits, so we know that this was a 69. And of course, F code means 318 that year. So they just took basically a plain Jane 69 car and built as best a Restomod as they possibly could. I do love the Wilwood disc brakes on it with not sure what wheels these are, but I don't think they hurt the car at all. The reason I wanted to show you guys this car is because I personally am curious to see what the difference between that black 68 Charger with the Demon stuff in it and this 69 Restomod, what the difference between those cars would be. As far as interior goes, it's not as over the top as the last car we took a look at, so I'm assuming that this car would probably bring just a titch less, but I could be wrong, and that's why we're here at MECUM Auto Auctions, to kind of get this information for you guys. So this car, the sale price is exactly... What I figured we'd do is go over some Shelby differences for you guys at home. So this, of course, is a 1968 Shelby GT500KR car. Now, of course, we can see that it does have the Cobra Jet inside here, 428. It does have the Ram induction or the Ram Air here underneath the hood. That's specific to the KR cars only. Now, in 1967, these pieces right here are actually a little bit different. In other words, the hood pin piece and the stopper for the hood is one piece in 1967. This is a 68, so it's done in two. Now, this car is a late Shelby, and I'll show you how we can tell that. The first thing we can tell that by is the headlights. They say Lucas right here. If this was an early car, it would have said Marshall. The Marshall headlights were outlawed. That's why they switched over to Lucas. If we go around the side of this car, there was two styles of side marker lights on a 1968 Shelby. So on the front, they're all the same. They look just like this. But on the back, they're different. This is the later style side marker light. This would have been square if it was an early 68 car. But what's also different is that these cars never got 10-spoke wheels. In other words, 5 cars would have gotten these wheels, and all 5 cars were shipped overseas. No American cars got these wheels, but you do see them on the 68 Shelbys more than you would have seen the Garwood wheel covers. Now, what's also pretty cool, now these taillights on the back for the 68 Shelby are Thunderbird taillights. They have the slats and they are sequential, and if this was a 67 car, they would have been out of a Cougar. Now, these trumpets down here, these are not correct. These would have had a pipe-in-pipe design similar to a Ferrari. There's no pipe in here, so they're not the way that Shelby would have had from the factory. Original cars would have had a pipe. Now, if you watch some of my earlier videos, you can definitely see that. Now, the window is down on this car. The 68 cars are the first cars to get the center console gauges and the center console itself. I enjoy this car. I think it's great in the candy apple red paint. It is a KR car. They only build 1,000 of these cars. One last thing about the 67 and the 68 differences is that the 68, the seat belts actually detach. On a 67, they're all one piece, and we'll take a look at that right now. So this is a 1967 Shelby Mustang. Well, it's not actually a Shelby Mustang. This is just a regular Mustang that was converted into a Shelby. And the reason I know that, of course, is because of the VIN code right here. Now, it does have an S, so it was originally an S code 390 big block car. Now, the hood scoops on 68s are a little bit different. They extend all the way out here. This is a 67, so it's short. And then on a 68 car, it actually has black paint back here because the hood extends higher. That was so the sun doesn't reflect on that and bounce into your eyeballs. Also, the vents on a 68 are tapered. They're a little bit narrower in the front than they are on the back. But what's cool is I showed you that the hood pin and the hood stopper are one piece on a 67 instead of 2 like on a 68. Also, you could get 2 different styles of headlights in a 67. Of course, you can get the inboard setup like this, or you could get the headlights on the outside, which we consider to be outboard. You can see that there is no center console located inside this car, and everything is in silver. There is no wood for 67 Shelbys, as well as the little chrome piece right here. There's only one in 67. 68 would have had two pieces right here. Pretty cool stuff. We'll go around and take a look out back. Now in 67, it does say Shelby GT500 on the side right here. On a 68 car, it would have said Shelby across the deck lid, and the same is for the hood. So on a 68 Shelby, it says Shelby on the deck, on the hood right here, but a 67 does not. The Shelbys are 4 inches longer on the front end than the actual regular Mustang, something that we can't show on camera, but pretty cool fun fact for you. So how do I learn about these cars? Well, if you go a few videos back, I found a S-Code 390 Mustang Coupe, and that's how we learned about big block coupe Mustangs. Now, you don't see them very often, they're very rare, and they're even rarer when it's an R-Code 428 down inside instead of the big block S-Code 390. This also has the Ram Air hood on it, which makes it even more desirable. But it also has the GT features, and you can see that it has the fog lights as well. If this was a GTA or an automatic version, it would have had an A on the end here. Really, really rare car. We can go and take a look at the Marty report here. This kind of breaks everything down for us, so we can see that it does have the door sticker here with the R-Code on the inside, and in 1968, $4,282 was a pretty penny for this car. Remember, you could have bought a 1969 Camaro Z28 for about $4,000, so this was about $200 more expensive. This is a 68 car, of course, and it was painted in Highland green. Of course, that's a color made famous by Steve McQueen. It's got the nugget interior in here. We can see the original dealer invoice. And something cool that, just that I think is pretty cool is the VIN numbers are on the passenger side in 1968 for the Mustangs. We can see that it does have the R-Code down in there, pretty different stuff. We take a look out back here, we see that it does have the blacked out C stripe right here. We'll see if it has the buck tag on it. Okay, no buck tag on this car, but it would have a CS on there for the C stripe. Something that's pretty cool is that if this was a 67 car, this GT logo right here would actually be black. In 68, they turned to red, and the GT Mustangs had the dual cutouts for the dual exhaust. We haven't seen one of these in a while. This is a 1977 Pontiac Trans Am SE, and the SE is the top of the line version that got everything on it, including the gold pinstripes that go on the outside of this car. If this was just a regular Trans Am, it would not have the gold on the inside here. That is SE specific. 3 different engine types on the Trans Ams. They had a 403 Olds motor over in California because of emissions, but everything else, of course, was the 6.6. These did come with the gold snowflake wheels, and the early cars got the red hubcaps, and this one does not have those, so it must be a later car. Remember, the SE had a different logo that went right here. It also had a golden steering wheel and a gold brush dash plate right there, you can see. And this car does have T-tops. Now, they made 2 different types of T-tops. You could have got the T-tops made by Hurst or by Fisher, depending on when the car was built. And the birds are different for the SE version than the regular Trans Ams. The SE on the inside of the bird got a lighter gold, and if it was just a regular Trans Am, not a special edition Trans Am, then it would have been more of a yellowish color on the Phoenix here, or the Screaming Chicken on the hood. On the tail pan here, the non-SE cars, the non-special edition cars, they got the Trans Am written in a different style of writing. This is a Gothic style of writing for the special edition cars in 1977. This car sold exactly for. So the car behind me, this one's a little unique. I don't think that I've actually ever seen one of these cars, and I'm not even familiar with what the name of this car is. We'll find out here in just a second. But if you're at all familiar with your 1960s Ferraris, this front end looks very similar to the 275 GTB, as well as the hood scoop here with the flat top is very inspired by Ferrari. But if we take a look on that side, we can see that the back end gets a little Jaguar E-Type-esque. In other words, the wraparound bumpers with the taillights and the slope back here, I mean, that to me looks just like a Jaguar E-Type kind of shrunk down on this car. Now this car does say that it was built in 1969, however I'm not familiar with the make or model. It does say Vetta Ventura. Total of 19 were produced, handmade Italian steel bodies, so I'm not sure if it was made here in the United States or over in Italy. It's definitely unique. I wouldn't begin to know where this car would bring on the scale of price-wise. It does look like it has Ferrari gauges and a faux Ferrari wheel. Pretty cool car, one of 19, Vetta Ventura, 1969. So I'm not 100% when it comes to Impalas. I've never bought one, I've never sold one, but I do admire the way that they look. And every time I've ever gone to like a flea market or a swap meet or anything, every time there's a 409 Impala, it seems to be one of the first cars sold at the event. So maybe I'm missing something myself. This is a 409, which was the big block in 1963. It has 425 horsepower. It's got the dual snorkel chromed out air cleaner on the top here, but this car is probably, if not one of the nicest cars here at the show. And it does have the tack on the center console there. It is a Impala Super Sport, but if you guys know anything about these cars, you know, just let us know. It does say that it has a Muncie 4-speed, posi-track rear end, probably a pretty much race car setup for 1963. Overall, really, really cool car, 1963 Impala Super Sport.